Good Wednesday morning, everybody, and I want to extend to you a Happy New Year. So, this is my first video of 2025, but it's ended up being one of my wrap-ups for December. So, this is going to be my wrap-up and books for December. And I ended up cleaning up pretty good this month. Last month, but you know what I mean. I completed 12 books. I never thought that I'd ever actually read that much in December, but yay me. So every book that I read past December was all Christmas / winter themed. It was a very mixed bag month, but I only rated 2 books 5 stars. The rest of them were 4, 3, 2. I even have 1 star. 1 2-star, 1 1-star. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with all the books that I completed in December. Of course, I need my notebook here. The first book I completed was Here Comes Santa Claus by Edward Lee, and this was on my Kindle. This was only like a 30-ish page short story. And this book was very weird. Don't let the cover fool you. It's not exactly what the cover entails. You just have like these kids in the very beginning. The sister's kind of like a nutcase, and she like makes fun of her little brother for believing in Santa Claus, and it goes nowhere. But the story picks up when Santa gets trapped in like a nor'easter, and he enters this alternate world where it's hell, and he starts seeing like delightful things. But as you go along, there's like an imposter Santa that literally messes with his reality. Very weird and kind of silly. But I ended up giving this 3 stars. The next book I completed was Everything is Temporary by John Cone. And this is my second book by the author. And this one I highly enjoyed. This was about a man who like wrote a manuscript of why he hates Christmas. And it turns out that everything that he hates about Christmas becomes a reality. Because basically his manuscript comes to life. There's like this eccentric woman who disguises herself as Mrs. Claus, but she's kinda almost like a Greek monster, I believe. And she just ruins this kid's life. And this story can get very dark at times, but I highly enjoyed this one. 4 stars. Next one, I'm just going to stay on the audio kick. I found Christmas Lights Slithering Up My Street by Ben Farthing. Very long title, and this one was set on Christmas Eve, if I'm not mistaken. And there's like this kid who gets no love from his family, and he goes down into the sewer, and he realizes there's sentient alien Christmas lights about ready to envelop the street that he lives on. That's pretty much the entire story. Pretty solid book, 4 stars. Followed by Snow Shark by Brian G. Barry. Probably one of the goriest books that I read throughout the month. There's quite a few bloody books on here. But this is more of like a winter read. And it's exactly what you think. It's just an 80s horror B movie in novel form. So it's about this family who goes to this winter resort, and there's like a shark on the loose, and he ravages all the guests. Very brutal book, and I definitely want to read more from Brian G. Barry. I mean, look at that cover. Of course I want to read it from Brian G. Barry. So I gave that one 4 stars. Next one is Return of the Living Elves by Brian Asman. And this one was goofy, but also very fun. So basically it's a play on words with Return of the Living Dead, but with Christmas elves. So there's just like a zombie elf apocalypse, and people just fight to survive. I read this on my Kindle, and I gave it 4 stars. Next is a very short story collection called Christmas in the Empty Cabin by E. Reyes. And this one collected 6 short stories that deal with Christmas and Thanksgiving, I believe. The story that stood out to me was the one where there's like a ghost girl and the boy falls in love with her, but it turns out that she was brutally murdered by her grandmother. That was a very good story. I forgot what it was called though. But it's a solid collection, but not very memorable. I gave it 3 stars. The next one, since I pretty much conquered my audio reads, I have 2 more audio books on here. The next one, not so good. This is Christmas Kringle Coming to Town by Michael Anderle. And this one should have been for me because it's a Santa Claus action thriller. I thought that this was extremely forgettable and kind of boring. But essentially, Santa Claus has to rescue Mrs. Claus from terrorists. That's all I remember. Followed by my first physical read of December, Christmas Eve Carnage by John Lynch. And he actually signed this. So it says, "Are you on the naughty list?" Apparently I was. But this is about a family who's about ready to celebrate Christmas Eve until they meet an escaped convict who he wants to get revenge for him being locked up in prison, because the man who locked him up is the patriarch of this family. So the killer's name was Chad Reynolds, I think, somewhere on that line. And he goes from house to house to find this family. But there's also an evil Christmas elf toy on the loose named Sprinkles. Right there. And this was probably the goofiest character that I've ever read. But Sprinkles is terrifying. He's a little horny old dude, I'll say that much. So, everybody that he ravages, he does things to them. But this could get very, very gory. And I really enjoyed the hell out of this story. It was a little slow at times, but when it ends, it's definitely a very, very gory ending. So that was Christmas Eve Carnage. And not to mention, the ending is very depressing. I mean, we only have the survivor, Cindy, there. But that was Christmas Eve Carnage. The next one is my final audiobook of 2024. And my God, what a way to go out. The Christmas Guest by Peter Swanson. And I did not enjoy this book whatsoever. It was just like a quick 95-page novella that I really did not care for the story whatsoever. And it's just basically about an American who goes to London to spend Christmas in a mansion. And there's like somebody on the loose that kills one of the guests or whatever. I thought this book was very forgettable and extremely boring. But although I'm not that much into murder mysteries, unfortunately, this one was just not for me. But moving on from there, I have Father Christmas versus the Abominable Snowman by Harrison Phillips. And this was also on my Kindle. And this is exactly what it sounds like. There's an abominable snowman on the loose. And you have like a mall Santa who like literally fights to survive during a snowstorm. And the abominable snowman just plows through human flesh. This is a gory book and very highly enjoyable. So I gave this one 5 stars. I absolutely dug this one. Moving on from there, my final Kindle read of 2024, Santa Exploitation by Judith Sonnet. This was my 6th book that I read by her just in 2024. That's the most that I've ever read from an author in a year. But she tends to like write short, disturbing fiction. And this one was a little odd. So it's basically about like this group of women who torture Santa Claus. That's it. And apparently Taffy comes from Santa and elves' fecal matter. Don't ask me why, but we'll go with it. But yeah, this one was a little odd. I gave it 3 stars. And finally, the last book that I completed in 2024 was Christmas Eve Carnage 2, Sprinkles Lives. And I also have this signed. It says you can't keep a good elf down. So I actually got this on John Lynch's website, and I actually got this Christmas Eve, so I had to like literally fly through this thing. But I ended up finishing it on December 30th, and let's talk about it. So this literally picks up right where Christmas Eve Carnage ends. And Sprinkles is still on the loose, and he's trying to find Cindy Fletcher and end her once and for all. But this is primarily taking place in a hospital, and Sprinkles is even meaner in this one. There's an ambulance scene in here that goes so over the top and so gory that, I mean, I definitely will not forget it. So, whoopsie. I highly, highly enjoyed this one over the first one. That might be a little bit controversial because this is still a brand new book. But more and more people will definitely read the sequel. But this could have made my top 10 best books of the year. But it was too little too late, but that's okay. But I gave this 5 stars. And there you have it, folks. That is my last wrap-up in book form for 2024. In a couple minutes, I'm going to film my January TBR and tell you how I'm going to look at 2025 reading-wise. And then later tonight, I'll probably film my December movie wrap-up. And I watched a lot of movies in December. I think I counted 30 movies in December. I never thought that I'd do that. But anyway, that's all I got for this video. I'll see you in the next one. Adios. Peace.